This is a story of boy meets girl. But you should know up front, this is not a love story.
Right from the start, Marc Webb's directorial debut, 500 Days of Summer, seeks to inform audiences that what they're about to watch is not a typical cheesy romantic comedy. A genre that often showcases heteronormative relationships and plays into stereotypical gender roles, these films are often dismissed by critics and branded as chick flicks. Here it is clear from the seemingly paradoxical statement that Webb wants to challenge the preconceived notions of the genre, while still playing into the typical outlines of stories found in such films, to tell a more truthful and often bleaker view of love. Even before the film starts, a disclaimer appears on the screen which initially seems like a standard disclosure, but the following title cards immediately give us a hint to the unreliable narration of the film. As mentioned by screenwriter Scott Neustadter, this film is not solely fictional, it is based on his personal experience, which creates this odd blend of fiction and reality, asking the audience to question the bias towards Summer in each scene, as it's written completely from the male perspective. Neustadter admits in this interview that,
and I could write from that sort of perspective and be extremely one-sided, never ever tell her story, her side of the story. Hopefully that's very clear early on that we're doing that on purpose, that she doesn't get a fair share at this.
The film does something that is untypical for the genre and tells the story from the male point of view, thus allowing a subversion of the tropes found in typical romantic comedies and challenges the gender roles often found in such films. The film follows the hopeless romantic Tom, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a greeting card writer who falls in love with Summer, played by Zooey Deschanel, the cynic who is hypercritical of love and romance. What follows is Tom reflecting on his 500 days spent with Summer, from the magnificent highs to the eventual demise of their relationship. Webb is clearly not interested in playing to society's wider acceptance of stereotypical gender roles, and seeks to challenge and subvert them by swapping the typical personality traits associated with heterosexual relationships found in romantic comedies. From the outset, the narrator tells us the defining characteristics of both characters. Tom has traits most commonly associated with the prototypical female in romantic comedies. He's obsessed with love and believes he needs a partner to truly experience life, and wholeheartedly believes in the idea of the one. In her book, Romantic Comedy, Claire Mortimer comments on the typical heroine found in romantic comedies. She states, "As with many film heroines, a female spectator may seek someone to identify with, but also someone who embodies dreams and desires. In 500 Days of Summer, it is Tom who embodies this typical female trait of being a dreamer and longing to find his true love, embodying the typical role of the heroine, yet this time being a character for male audiences to latch onto. Summer, on the other hand, is emotionally withdrawn and distant. She does not want a relationship and to commit to someone, which are all traits that would be commonly found in the male protagonist. Again, as Mortimer puts it, the male hero is at the heart of the rom-com, needing to be a plausible object of desire for the woman and for the audience. The hero is a catalyst for the heroine, propelling her into a journey involving difficult lessons and emotional growth. It is Summer who takes on this masculine archetype. She embodies a goal for Tom to achieve and is not given much growth herself. Her character serves as an object for Tom to obtain. Yet any emotional growth Tom has in the film is a result of something Summer says or does. It is Summer who initiates their relationship, reignites his passion for architecture, and ultimately ends their relationship too. However, in treating Summer as an objective for Tom to attain, Summer is simply an ancillary character to drive Tom's journey throughout the film. While this could be viewed as a critique on the film for not developing its female lead character enough, there is enough evidence throughout the film pointing towards this being a conscious decision on the filmmaker's part. For one, the film is conscious that it is subverting patriarchal gender roles. In the diner scene where Summer breaks up with Tom, she compares the two to Sid and Nancy, a rock star who stabbed his girlfriend to death. In the scene, Tom assumes, since he is the male, that Summer is calling him Sid, when in fact she says she is Sid, an example of the conscious reversal of gender seen throughout the film, and speaks to the idea that this film wants to move away from the typical gendering of the genre. There is also the juxtaposing scenes in the film where, on day 154, Tom analyses and breaks down Summer into aspects he loves about her, detailing all the physical parts of her he loves, progressively getting more intimate until he confesses his love straight to the camera. This is contrasted later in the film on day 322, where Tom details the exact same features, Yet this time, the bright and angelic lighting has been replaced by a muted and grey tone, and Tom comments negatively on said parts, hence demonising Summer. The scene serves an indication to the audience that the film is told from an unreliable narrator and shows the untrustworthiness associated with memory. The fact that Tom can recall the exact same moments and feel completely different about them. It also highlights the pleasure and displeasure the female form can take from the male gaze, a key concept of feminist film theorist Laura Mulvey, found in her book Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. The whole film serves as a prime example of Mulvey's concept of the male gaze, as the audience is explicitly aware that the film is told from a male perspective. The film being a retelling of Tom's relationship to his sister and then a self-reflection on the 500 days he spent with Summer, allows the film to be a self-aware exploration of Tom and a critical analysis of the downsides to his overt romanticism. In the climax of the film, audiences are teased with the idea that Tom and Summer might get back together in the iconic expectations versus reality scene. In this scene, Tom attends a party at Summer's and believes that this is his chance to win her back. As he arrives, the screen splits and two scenarios play out before the audience's eyes. The expectations scene is a scenario Tom has built in his head, where he gives Summer a gift she loves, spends all night quietly conversing with her as they gaze into each other's eyes, drowning out the party, and eventually Summer leads Tom to her bedroom. Conversely, the reality scene does not play out as Tom expects. The gift he gives Summer is dismissed. Tom is questioned and pressured about his career by the other attendees of the party, and he ends up drinking alone. As the scene plays out, the diegetic sounds slowly begin to be reduced in the expectations scene, and the sound of reality becomes the dominant sound, along with the somber Regina Spektor song playing behind the scene, hinting that this will not go the way Tom wants. What transpires is a beautiful use of imagery. The expectation scene gets pushed out of the frame and overtaken by the reality scene, taking us back to the story of the film as Tom's world begins to crumble upon the realization that Summer is engaged. This small portion of the film serves as a microcosm to the film at large. Truly, this is a tale of Tom's misguided conceptions about love and him coming to terms with reality and not the fantasies he built in his head. Tom, a few days after this in the film, meets his sister once again, and she tells him to take another look back on his relationship, this time not looking back with rose-tinted glasses. This is where the non-linear narrative that 500 Days conveys its story through shines. Up until this point, we have been jumping around Tom's life to his different moments with Summer, as he desperately picks apart some random moments to find what went wrong. This reflects how humans' memory works. We do not remember things linearly with a concise storyline or structure. We are reactionary, and Tom is remembering aspects of their relationship that coincide with his feelings in the present. When reflecting once again on his time with Summer, this time prompted to look not only at the positives, what the audience sees as clips used previously in the film. However, these clips are played linearly, culminating in a scene prior to the breakup, where the audience, and Tom, sees how incompatible the couple were. Another film that uses the non-linear narrative to great effect is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The film follows Joel Barish, played by Jim Carrey, as he undergoes a procedure to remove his memories of his ex-girlfriend, Clementine, played by Kate Winslet, after learning that she has done the same to him. The film takes audiences on a journey through Joel's memories and are intercut with the team removing them in the present. In Eternal Sunshine, Joel lacks agency once he is in the procedure, much like Tom, who also lacks this agency, unable to get Summer off his mind, his thoughts being consumed by their time together. Non-linear narratives can suggest a lack of power over the story that the characters are in, and in this way seeks to deconstruct the power held by the male protagonists in the story, and highlights the importance of the female characters in their lives, since essentially, they are the driving force for the plot of both films. This again going against the expectations held by gender stereotypes in romantic comedies. Postmodern films are classified as opposing the normal ideals held by mainstream movies. Whether that is through their narrative structure or through the characterization in the film, it is meant to subvert the offerings of modernist cinema. The characters of Tom and Summer fit this model as they are the opposite of what we expect the archetypal male and female in romantic comedies to be. The non-linear narrative also lends itself to this definition, as the frequent use of cuts and the fragmenting of time is a key feature of postmodernism in film. The idea that as much can be said in the transitions between the frames as the frames themselves. Subsequently, the idea that the audience is jumping around these 500 days as Tom is trying to piece together his relationship can be viewed as extremely postmodern. The ordering of events is of as much importance as the events themselves. Postmodern films are also viewed as occupying the space between mainstream, low art films and the avant-garde, high art films, which 500 Days of Summer fits into perfectly. The film was distributed by a mainstream studio, but by its independent branch, Fox Searchlight, which allowed the mixing of the artistic and the experimentalist nature of independent films, but also allowed it to be distributed to a wider audience. However, the key feature of the film that makes this a postmodern story is its use of intertextuality. The film is laden with references to pop culture, media, and entertainment. What could be a very surface-level gimmick, whereby references are used throughout the film to no greater effect or purpose, is not the case here. Tom and Summer's whole relationship is built on their mutual connection over sad British pop music, and most of their early conversations revolve around media. It is the basis of how they connect. Yet as Tom's sister so aptly puts it,
just because some cute girl likes the same bizarro crap you do, that doesn't make her your soulmate, Tom.
Tom latches onto the idea that because they have similar interests, then Summer is the one he has been looking for. But later, after the fate of their relationship has been sealed, he concludes that
it's these cards, and the movies and the pop songs, they're to blame for all the lies and the heartache, everything.
It is a cathartic moment in the film as Tom realises the damage that the cliché love stories that have perpetuated media and his life can cause. The film being abundant with intertextual references only speaks to this theme more. The use of intertextuality plays an even bigger part in the film, with it being a key moment in why Tom and Summer break up. The film references The Graduate multiple times throughout, and at the start of the film we are introduced to the idea that Tom misread The Graduate. When Tom plays through the day him and Summer break up, we see the pair in the cinema watching The Graduate, employing mise en abîme, as we watch the ending with the couple. The camera then cuts back to Summer, who is in tears, and Tom, who is confused as to why she's crying. The Graduate, much like 500 Days, is an often misinterpreted film. Tom, who is one of such people, sees the ending as a happily ever after, yet Summer sees the ending for what it is. The two characters, played by Dustin Hoffman and Catherine Ross, have ran away together impulsively, and in the iconic long final shot of the film, we see the dread and doubt settle on their faces. They don't know if the relationship will work. Yet Tom is unaware of the subtleties here, as he is so consumed by his romanticism, he completely misreads the film. His emotional naivety stops him from understanding the ending. This juxtaposition of the two characters' reactions is a turning point in their relationship, as it shows how emotionally incompatible the pair are, and through the lens of another film about misguided love, this only strengthens this idea. The strength of the film lies in its ability to use intertextuality as a means to further enhance the core themes, rather than the references being void of any meaning. There are many references used throughout the film, from Knight Rider to Han Solo, Seventh Seal to Ringo Starr, even drawing cinematic parallels to films such as The Graduate and Annie Hall, which many critics view as being inspiration for the film. There's direct pastiche in 500 Days, such as the moment Tom speaks to camera, much like Alvy in the opening shots of Annie Hall. The film also manages to incorporate meaningful product placement to highlight the main themes. On day 34 of their relationship, Tom and Summer take a trip to IKEA. They begin to play a fantasy, parodying the nuclear family. They sit and watch TV together, then Summer begins to plate dinner for her husband, buying into traditional gender roles with Summer doing her best on a Reed impression. They then proceed to race through the store to the bedroom as if it were their home, and Summer tells Tom that she is not looking for a relationship. This scene, while joyous and fun, manages to be bittersweet, as we know that this fantasy that they are playing out is Tom's expectation of how the relationship will be, not how it turns out in reality. As the couple leave the IKEA, the shot lingers on a carefully chosen piece of mise en scène. A quote that reads, "We don't make fancy quality, we make true everyday quality." This ironic statement, another key feature of postmodernism, is meant to evoke the fact that much like the products the store they are in are selling, Tom and Summer's relationship is fragile and temporary. It is not some fancy love story from the movies, it is an everyday love story, one that will not necessarily have a happy ending. In this sense, IKEA as a whole serves as a powerful visual for the expendable nature of their love. 500 Days of Summer moves away from the typical feminization of the romantic comedy to bring forward a more postmodern exploration of love by subverting patriarchal gender roles, using experimentalist techniques, and saturating the film with meaningful intertextual references. It shies away from the idealized nature of love often portrayed by the genre to explore a more realistic view of love, albeit extremely one-sided. As Paul, played by Matthew Gray Gubler, when talking about his wife, pertinently puts it,
truthfully, Robin's better than the girl of my dreams. She's real.
the film not adhering to the typical Hollywood model of the happy ending, and instead taking an intimate look into the life of one character and how his perception of the story is a warped one, is more evidence of the postmodern nature of the film. However, the film's ending is not without love, which seems to contradict the opening postmodern paradoxical statement. It may not be a love story between the two main characters, as found in traditional mainstream movies, but it is a story on how love has changed them. Tom falling back into love with architecture, and Summer finding what love means to her after being so adverse to it. As such, it is the film's ability to subvert the normalities of what is expected in a romantic comedy, while still playing into some of the key features of the genre, to flip gender roles yet still pertain to the archetypal structures of characters found in these types of films, and to tell different kinds of love stories throughout that make 500 Days of Summer a perfect example of a postmodern love story. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like and consider subscribing for more video essays like this. And don't forget to tell me in the comments below what you found in Frames.